Madam Chair, and thank all of the witnesses for being here. This is certainly a much needed discussion, but I really want to thank Mr. Powell for being here and for your comments, Mr. Powell, on what I think is the heart of the issue with the Select Committee, and that is global emissions. When we talk about that and in reducing global emissions, particularly while we strengthen the U.S. economy and not allow China and Russia to dominate energy development around the world. And I think there's bipartisan agreement that we need to invest in the innovation of clean technologies. But I'm convinced that we can do that and still grow our economy at the same time. However, there are some of those who differ in what kind of innovation is acceptable. And we need to concentrate on innovations in the U.S. interest and that maintains our energy security and brings down global emissions. The key is global emissions. We do not live in a vacuum here. It's not just the United States. It is the whole world that is contributing to this, and even more so other countries than it is the United States of America. I want to talk about carbon capture, Mr. Powell. The Department of Energy announced last year that they were funding two cost-sharing projects in Georgia with Georgia Tech and the Southern States Energy Board. Georgia Tech is researching direct air capture technology under realistic conditions for global deployment, while the other project by Southern States Energy Board in Peachtree Corners is targeting reducing the overall cost of direct air capture. Mr. Powell, are there any encouraging developments in direct air capture technology?
Well, first, thanks so much, Congressman Carter. Great to see you, and thanks for your leadership on these issues, on supporting the Energy Act, on your support for nuclear energy. I was terrific to see those grants go to the great state of Georgia for research into this really important technology. There are some extremely promising developments in this space. I think we should all remember that a lot of folks are setting goals around net zero, and that means that in the future we might still have some parts of our economy that continue to emit if, for example, it would be extremely expensive to stop the emissions in that space. But as long as we net them back out with some kind of carbon dioxide removal or direct air capture, that's just fine, right? The climate only cares about the net emissions, right? Not the absolute emissions. And so direct air capture could be a really promising technology that would be a mechanical removal of CO2 from the atmosphere. Some models show that we're going to have to do that at an enormous scale, maybe billions of tons in the future. And so we need to be investing now to radically bring down the cost of that technology. There are now a number of companies that are actively working on it and even getting ready to deploy this technology in the United States. I think the largest project and the one that's probably the most promising is Carbon Engineering's proposed project in the Permian Basin, where they're working with Occidental Petroleum. They're going to remove CO2 from the atmosphere at enormous scale, up to 1 million tons a year, and then they're going to put that underground and use it for enhanced oil recovery. And that will actually pretty
I think he froze. I'm sorry for that, but if it's okay, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I'm going to go ahead because the clock is ticking. And I really want to get to this. And what is it about? It's about carbon capture and I'm sorry you froze there, Mr. Powell, but I want to get to this. So please allow me, if you will. Georgia, and this will be the first time I've ever said this before this committee, but Georgia is the #1 forestry state in the country, and certainly growing trees and it can sequester more carbon dioxide than the annual U.S. emissions from passenger vehicle travel, forest products manufacturing facilities, forest harvest operations, and estimated wildfires. What can we do to further incentivize carbon capture through our nation's forest?
So natural climate solutions, particularly in the forestry space, I think are a really important part of this picture. And the most promising thing would be if we could find a way to use those to sequester that CO2 in those forests and forest products, and then to either permanently use them, for example, in building materials, so that never goes back up into the air, or use some of those forest products for bioenergy and combine that with carbon capture and storage. That actually creates negative emissions power generation. Right. Which could be a hugely important way in the future to both continue having a clean energy generating economy and to be pulling CO2 out of the air as we're doing it.
Okay, just a few seconds left. Why don't we use more biomass in this country?
That's a great question. I think that there's some disagreement about the carbon impacts of biomass. I think there's no disagreement that if you combined it with carbon capture, we'd actually have negative emission, power generation, and that could be a really powerful tool in our clean energy arsenal.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Powell, and thank you, Madam Chair.